Easy touch of fate could never get too heavy. It's gossamer, it never holds you down. The snack that's always right, but anytime you want it, it's the cool light snack you like to have around. Right the cool light snack, the snack that's always
July 2nd, 1971, Paris, France. It's 11 a.m. and Jim Morrison only has 18 hours left to live. He's come here to Paris, a city rich in arts and inspiration, to write poetry. Sick of his rock star image, he's determined to make his mark as a serious poet. But lately, he's had a bad case of writer's block and is feeling anxious. Alain Ronay, an old friend from Morrison's film days at UCLA, drops by.
Alain Ronay and Jim Morrison had been friends since film school. They did not hang around together a lot during Jim's rock star days. Then when they were in Paris together, they spent a lot of time. And they were good friends, they went way back.
Ronay notices that Morrison is restless. He suggests they go out for a walk and grab some lunch. Jim doesn't look too well at all. They stroll along the colorful Rue des Rosiers, not far from Morrison's apartment. Here, he is rarely recognized and is free from the pressure of playing the rock star. In this bohemian Jewish neighborhood, Jim Morrison seems to fit in perfectly. But throughout most of his life, that has rarely been the case. Born in the small town of Melbourne, Florida, on December 8, 1943, Jim and his family were forced to move often because of his father's job as a Navy officer. By the time he turned 16, he had already moved 11 times, making it difficult to make friends. Tandy Martin was Jim Morrison's high school sweetheart.
Jim used to be in the basement of his house painting. And he stayed down there a lot, painting and writing, and we spent a lot of time down there.
As a teenager, the bright student became more and more disruptive in school and at home. His father, a strict disciplinarian, cracked down hard on Jim.
His parents had no idea what to do with a kid like Jim. No idea. How could they?
Nor could his straight-laced parents understand their son's fascination with the dark underbelly of literature.
I think in the 8th grade, he had a copy of Allen Ginsberg's Howl. I mean, you have to put that into perspective. People weren't reading that stuff in the 8th grade. No way. Or 9th grade or 10th grade. Jim was not like other people. He just wasn't like other people.
It's the classic teenage angst. Kids growing up and saying, gee, the world is not all fluffy and nice the way mom and dad have been telling me. There's something dark, something sinister, something dangerous about it. And Jim reflected that in everything he did.
At 19, Morrison's inability to fit in finally got him in trouble with the law.
Some people just rebel because they don't really know what else to do. But Jim was an original, for good or ill.
In Tallahassee, Florida, he was arrested for stealing a helmet from a police car, resisting arrest, and being drunk and disorderly.
In junior and senior year, I think that's when he started to drink.
In alcohol, Morrison found the perfect fuel to fan the flames of his one-man rebellion against the police, his strict father, and everything in between.
Yeah, I think he had a problem with authority. Absolutely.
On reaching adulthood, Jim wasn't done rebelling. His father had expected him to follow in his footsteps and join the military. Instead, in 1964, he headed to California and enrolled in UCLA's film program. So deep was the insult that after university, Jim and his father would never speak again.
Jim often referred to his parents as being dead. In his mind, they were dead to him.
At Paris, strolling along with his friend Alain René, he is momentarily distracted by a cut-glass Star of David dangling in a shop window. He decides to buy it for his girlfriend, Pamela Courson. For the successful rock star, money is no object. But just 5 years earlier, he had been flat broke. In 1965, as a 21-year-old film student in California, Jim Morrison started partying heavily on Venice Beach. Inspired by the wild hippie scene, he spent his days and nights smoking pot, dropping acid, and writing poetry. One day on the beach, he met fellow film student Ray Manzarek.
Ray asked Jim what he'd been up to, and Jim said, well, I've been writing a lot of poetry, and I've been working on some songs. And Ray said, really? Well, sing me one. And Jim sang Moonlight Drive. And Ray said, wow, that's some of the best lyrics I've ever heard for a rock song. How would you like to get together and work on some things? So he got John Densmore, he got Robbie Krieger, they came together, and Jim began to sing.
They called themselves The Doors, based on a poem by one of Morrison's heroes, William Blake. Morrison's own poetry set to rock songs soon caught the attention of locals. They became the house band at the infamous Whiskey A Go-Go, where their shy lead singer often performed with his back to the audience. But that shyness soon gave way to Morrison's budding love affair with the spotlight. And the spotlight loved him right back.
The press loved to write about him, and you know, he was a good-looking guy.
With Jim Morrison at the wheel, one rock critic dubbed the Doors the missionaries of apocalyptic sex. And Jim made sure he lived up to his sex god image, even backstage before a show with super groupie Pam DeBar.
We found a loft of some kind where they were storing old lighting equipment and stuff. It was somewhere to make out. And I said, I'm making out with Jim Morrison. I'm making out with Jim Morrison. So we did that for a while. And it turned out that the show was starting. And he went, oh, okay. And he went scrambling down the ladder and running out onto the stage.
The special attention given to Morrison began to create tension within the band.
I think there was a little bit of resentment in that they were a unit in the way that they wrote, in the way they created. The songs were credited to all of them. But after a while, Jim got more and more and more of the attention.
This idiot DJ in Los Angeles who began to talk about Jim Morrison and the Doors, as opposed to the Doors, whose lead singer was Jim Morrison. The Doors didn't like it, they tolerated it.
Soon, even Jim Morrison would be unable to tolerate his own rock god image. He will run all the way to Paris to escape it, only to find peace at the ultimate price.